ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Respectful friends, continuing from yesterday's discourse of trying to acquire the position of ihsan and how important it is and how that the majority of us have as yet not acquired the position of ihsan, and we may find that we have been doing the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for many years now, but despite doing the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for so many years, we still do not acquire that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the spiritual enhancement and the spiritual benefit that we should have acquired from ibadat. We did not find that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I had given you one example of salah yesterday, of how we perform our salah, but we just perform the salah as a robot, where there isn't any spiritual or ruhani attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we're performing our salah, and neither is there any attachment or coordination with our hearts and the various different postures there are in salah. We don't find any of these. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself mentions was إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ, that one of the spiritual benefits of salah is تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ, that it prevents and it stops a person from all forms of immodesty, and it prevents a person from the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is salah? Salah, it prevents us from the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we find that we are performing salah our entire lives. But then too we still disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means the spiritual effect of salah is not coming into effect through our salah. And the reason it isn't is because of that void in the spiritual connection with the salah that we perform. And as I mentioned to you, ours is around the world in 4 rakats. You perform 4 rakats salah, and in that 4 rakats we will travel around the entire world. So it so happens that, as I mentioned to you yesterday, that when a person does the salah, when he completes his salah, the salam is because he has returned from his mi'raj. He's returned from his mi'raj with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so now he greets the people around him. But ours, it seems that we greet the people after we've toured the entire world. We've gone around the entire world and we've thought of all sorts of things, and now we realize, we're back here in the masjid. So then we do salam to them. What is the purpose of that salam is? So at the moment we stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we have the quality of ihsan, we'll perceive and we'll know that we're standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then according the person will stand in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these are the gestures he makes, the actions that he does in his salah. Then when he goes and he proceeds towards the ruku, he understands at that time that look, he's bowing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then in ruku, when he says Subhana Rabbil Azim, he'll enjoy saying Subhana Rabbil Azim, because he'll realize that look, he is bowing in front of Rabbil Azim. He is bowing in front of the one who is the Rabb, who is saying with his tongue that he is Rabbul Azim. So when he's saying he is Rabbul Azim, so that's why he's bowing in front of Rabbul Azim. And then when he goes into the sajda, when he goes in sajda, he'll appreciate and he'll enjoy his sajda, knowing that he is bowing his forehead for none other but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is Rabbil A'la. So he'll enjoy it. And in each aspect of his salah, at every moment, he'll have that spiritual connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he has the quality of ihsan. And the quality of ihsan is أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ, to do the worship of Allah as if you're seeing Him. This is one example of salah alone. But this ihsan is an ibadah. أن تعبد Allah, it doesn't say anything about salat itself, but أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه, that you do the ibadah of Allah as if you're seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I mentioned this many times, that this ihsan should be in every ibadah that we do. Not only in salah, every ibadah that we do, when we do the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we do the tilawat, then as well, to that extent that when a person even just takes out a few coins or a note and puts that in the lillah box, even at that moment as well, he should have the quality of ihsan, that he can perceive the spiritual benefits of that as well. Our salah is void of spirituality, so we don't get the spiritual benefits of it. We go for the hajj as well. And if a person went for hajj with ihsan, there is no doubt whatsoever when he returns from there, he won't just return with zamzam and dates, but he will come back and he'll return with the crate of zamzam and dates. That's how the hajj is. But that is if the hajj is also performed with ihsan. How great can it be when a person is there doing the tawaf of the Baytullah in the condition of ihsan? There can be no greater enjoyment than doing tawaf of the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the condition of ihsan. When a person knows that here he is doing tawaf of the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As my Shaykh mentions, that such a person who has the quality of ihsan, when he enters the haram as Shaykhul Haram. That he is now the Shaykhul Haram. And when he goes there, he doesn't just come back from the house, but having visited the house, but he comes back with the owner of the house. When he returns from his hajj, he returns with the owner of the house. This is the quality of ihsan. And this is the quality that we need to possess. And this, as I mentioned to you, can only be possessed, we can only acquire ihsan through the means of tazkiyah. Why through the means of tazkiyah? As I mentioned to you, that this quality of ihsan and this closeness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He has given us and He has ordained ibadat upon us. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. The ibadah, and through the ibadat He will acquire the manifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, in order to acquire the manifat, as you may have the question that why is it so essential that we have to purify the inner self? Fair enough, the external is correct. We have seen towards our external form, our appearances. We have seen towards our external ibadat, whichever ibadat we're doing. Be it the hajj that we're doing every rukn correctly according to how it's meant to. But why is it so important that the inner self has to be purified and has to be clean as well? And for that reason you'll find that only those people will be so worried or will only concentrate on the physical ibadat who have made just the physical ibadat their goal and mission in life. Which seems to be our mission as well. That our entire lives we just want to do the ibadat of Allah and just complete the ibadat of Allah, accomplish that, and that's all we want to do. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has created the ibadah, but He hasn't created the ibadat as the mission, as that being the goal and ultimate. But He has created the ibadah, so through the ibadat we acquire the recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us for His ibadah, but the ibadah is just a means of the marifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of the recognition of Allah, which means the reality is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us to acquire His marifah, to recognize Him, to acquire His recognition. But the means of that recognition is liya'budun. So that liya'budun, the ibadat of Allah is the means, the sabab, wherein then a person acquires the marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we should not just become stuck on that sabab, on that means, but we should be utilizing that means of actually reaching to the ultimate, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us for, which is His marifat. Now in order to acquire the marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we do not acquire that on our physical bodies, but the marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we acquire it in our spiritual bodies. It is for that reason that the spiritual body has to also be prepared and ready to accept the marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the purpose of tazkiyah. So that by means of tazkiyah, the person is preparing his inner self, his heart, his ruh, which can then acquire the marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a simple example is, at our homes, if we are to receive a guest is going to come to our house. Now, what happens, especially if it's a honorable guest, somebody very important and honorable guest, you'll find that the host will make sure that the house is cleaned. You'll clean the whole house. Upstairs, downstairs, everywhere you'll clean the house. Why? Because a guest is going to come to our house. How can we expect a guest to come to our dirty house? The guests won't come into our dirty house. So we make sure we clean the house so the house is clean and ready to accept the guest. We'll move things around. We'll prepare. In other words, we'll prepare for the arrival of that guest, because knowing that the guest won't come and won't want to come in a filthy home. In the same way, dear friends, when a person acquires marifat with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this closeness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which we classify as nisbah. Nisbah means connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this nisbah, when a person acquires nisbah, the nisbah is where? It is in our hearts. And nisbah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will only be acquired by that heart which has been cleaned. In a filthy, dirty heart, the love of Allah and nisbah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not enter such a heart. If we expect that we are believers, and when we say we are believers, we say La ilaha illallah to become a Muslim. So we are saying La ilaha illallah. Now for La ilaha illallah, you find, first, in order to acquire the positive illallah, there is the negative of La ilaha. In this statement, kalima La ilaha illallah, there are two aspects to it. One is the negating and then the affirming. And La ilaha, in La ilaha we are negating, and in illallah we are establishing. And these are very important. Which means that until there is no La ilaha, illallah is not going to be in our hearts. For there to be illallah, for there to be only Allah, it means there is La ilaha, there is no other word. Going back to the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala in our initial discourses, as I mentioned to you, their lives changed afterwards. Prior to that, majority of them, those who were in Makkah al-Mukarramah, were idol worshippers. The Sahaba, majority of them in Makkah al-Mukarramah were idol worshippers. So they believed in shirk, then shirk in their hearts. They believed in all these idols. So the first lesson to purify the heart was to establish La ilaha. And when that La ilaha was established in their hearts, and for them, their La ilaha was both the external and the internal. Ours, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has saved us from the external La ilaha, where we haven't believed in idols. We haven't had that custom or that practice of believing in idols. But the Sahaba, they were actually doing that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to physically take them away from the idols. So La ilaha, no idols anymore. There is only one. But in order to establish that one illallah, you have to move away from all those idols. As long as you go into those idols, there can't be illallah, is there? Because there is no illallah. So it was a case of removing all those La ilaha externally. But then at the same time, if a person who's always practiced shirk their entire lives, there's going to be shirk in the heart still. So it is a case of physically as well as spiritually to totally remove any form of shirk or even traces of shirk. When that was completed, then you find that the illallah was established. In the same way, for illallah, for Allah to enter into our hearts, first to acquire this closest and nisbah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to establish La ilaha first. And the moment La ilaha is established, then only will we find that illallah will become established in our hearts. If it is going to be both, and we try for both, that isn't the case. It isn't going to be the case. So it is for this reason that we have tazkiyah. And the whole aspect of tazkiyah is that we remove from our hearts all La ilaha. Now if you question, look, we don't worship any idols. So La ilaha should be established in our hearts. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَىٰ. Have you not seen those people who have taken their desires to be their ilah? Now there you'll have those people who take idols to be the ilah, and they're doing shirk there. But here we may not have those physical idols that we go to. But then we have made our desires the greatest idol. And that idol is so great in the heart, that it is that idol that until that doesn't come out of our hearts, illallah will never be established in our hearts. That on one side we are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but at the same time we are worshipping our desires as well. That instead, where it's the case of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to us that establish salah, that is a command of Allah. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, do not eat haram, this is a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our duty is we carry those commands out. But at the same time we find, our nafs will be saying to us as well, do this haram, do that haram, and what happens is we do that haram and we do that haram. So in doing the command or the dictates or the desires of our hearts, what we are doing is we've made our desires our ilah. And in that form what happens is, we have all these idols in our hearts. All the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of these are idols in our heart. Khaja Azizul Hasan Marzub Rahimullah, in his Urdu Shair al-Chansari as well, he mentions, Nikalo yaad hasino ki dil se e marzub. Nikalo yaad hasino ki dil se e marzub. Khuda ke ghar pe ishq buta nahi hota. Where he gives us an example of the spiritual and physical. Where he says, remove the love of all perishable people from the heart. Illicit love. Remove their love from the heart. Why? Because there is no idol worshipping in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just the way there was no idol worship, there's no idol worshipping in the house of Allah in Baytullah, there was idols before. But then Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam destroyed all the idols, so there was no idols in the house of Allah. That is the physical house of Allah on this land is the Baytullah, the Kaaba. The Kaaba Sharif is the physical house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this heart of ours, this is the spiritual house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the lives of each and every single person. In each and every single person's body, it is his heart which is the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why he says, Khuda ke ghar pe ishq buta nahi hota. There's no idol worshipping at the house of Allah, meaning in this heart. The heart which is the house of Allah. Because when a person acquires the love of Allah, when a person is in love with anybody for that matter, love, where do you feel love? You don't feel love in your head. You don't feel love in your ears or anywhere else. You feel love. Love is in the heart. The place for love is the heart. In the same way, love for Allah, the place of love for Allah is the heart as well. And now if a person expects or is desires to acquire this love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he can only acquire the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if he has purified his heart. And where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees that yes, his heart has now become ready to acquire my love, only in that heart a person acquires the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our hearts, this is a zarf. Zarf means a utensil. And in order for you to put something in a utensil, you need to make sure that there's space in that utensil. The utensil is clean as well. And if it is something precious you're going to put, something valuable you're going to put, you can make sure that that utensil is clean. If you have a bottle, and you have some ether or oud in liquid form, now you want to fill it up in a container, in a bottle or so, what you're going to make sure? You make sure that that bottle is clean first. And not only is clean, but it is nice and clean. It shouldn't be mixed with anything else. If there's some dirt in it, you're not going to put oud in a dirty bottle. You don't do that. But you will make sure it's cleaned out, and then you put that valuable oud inside there. Otherwise, it's that valuable oud is devaluing it by putting it in a filthy bottle. In the same way, the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't enter into a filthy utensil. If our hearts is full with all mass disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, khairullah. If khairullah is in our hearts, then the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to enter into the heart. And this entire process of tazkiyah is what? It is just this, of cleaning the heart, that it reaches such a stage that now it is ready to acquire the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is this process. And then when it comes to that stage, then within moments you find a person acquires nisbat with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the process to nisbat is that process of cleaning the heart. Once the heart is ready, nisbat is acquired. And nisbat will be on hold. It will be on hold until the heart is not clarified. This is the whole purpose of tazkiyah, of cleansing a person and purifying an individual. And until it isn't purified, and our condition, dear friends, is that we, as I mentioned earlier on, that we have been doing our ibadat our entire lives. And our ibadat is a means of acquiring closeness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the thing is, along with that, we are not giving due to the other side of things of keeping the heart clean as well. Where Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, mentions in the hadith, from spiritual illnesses, one is hasad, jealousy, hasad. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions to us that إِيَّاكُمْ وَالْحَسَدْ فَإِنَّ الْحَسَدَ يَأْكُلُ الْحَسَنَاتِ كَمَا تَأْكُلُ النَّارُ الْحَطَبَ أَوِ الْعُشْبَ. When Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that إِيَّاكُمْ وَالْحَسَدْ, save yourselves from hasad. As hasad, jealousy, it eats away at your hasanat as your good deeds, just the way fire eats away at wood or grass. So on one side, we are doing hasanat, we are doing a lot of good things, a lot of good deeds. But then we're not worried about the illness of hasad in our heart. And we keep on thinking that we're doing good, we're doing good. But until that hasad is in the heart, that hasad is eating away at our good deeds. But we under the misconception that look, we've got a lot of good deeds. And those good deeds will draw me close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reality is that hasad is eating away. And Muhaddithin mentioned that where Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions here, Narul Hatab, there are two types of fires. One is a blaze, a very strong fire. And that fire is such that in moments it burns everything away. If there's a huge explosion and a strong blaze, it will just burn everything away in moments. And the other is where there is just a small flame, a small fire. And that fire, you can't perceive it. But what it does, it burns away at whatever is there. Like you find sometimes there's a fire, you extinguish it and you think it's out. You can't see any flames there, but the wood is still burning. Wood is still burning. You see, you think there's no fire there, and there's a piece of wood there. But then after a few hours you go back there, you see, there's nothing there, it's just ashes there. This is the fire that Nabi Kareem mentions with regards to hasad. There's not a big fire that you can see it, but it is a small flame there that is slowly eating away at a person's hasanat. And he now thinks that I'm doing a lot of good. But because of not purifying the soul from hasad, it is eating away at his hasanat. So this is what we do. On one side we do good, but at the other side we pollute our hearts as well. And as long as there is this mixture of it, our hearts will not become that state which then is ready to acquire nisbat with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for us to acquire the quality of ihsan. And this is how we are. Our example is, person's clothing has become soiled with mud or anything else. Now they want to wash it. So what do? They take a bowl, fill it up with clean water. So they've cleaned it up, they filled the bowl up with clean water, and now they put the cloth, their shirt for example, they put that now into that bowl. Now when they put it in the clean water, obviously what happens now is the dirty cloth is going to now make that water dirty as well. Now this person, instead of now taking it out there and filling it up with fresh water, he just keeps on washing it with the filthy water. He keeps on washing it with the filthy water. This is how we are as well. Where we do one good deed, and by doing one good deed, we fill our hearts with clean water, with goodness. Now that goodness cannot clean our hearts. Why? Because then with that what we do, we mix that up with the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we do another good deed, and then we disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again. In this process of mixture of cleaning and filthing, we find our lives pass by without us cleaning our hearts. Without cleaning our hearts. And this is what our condition is. And this is what we need to understand, that this cleaning process needs to remain all the time. It needs to remain all the time. Otherwise we're going to continue in this vicious circle. Especially those people who are on the path of suluk. And they've chosen the path of suluk because they want to become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they can't, and the reason they can't is because We're doing all the positives that we need to be doing on one side, but we're not staying away from all the negatives on the other side. We're not staying away from the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We come into the masjid, we perform salah, we do all the positives. We've come into the masjid, we've come into a pure environment. We perform our salah as well. And by doing so, we've acquired a lot of ruhaniyah by us coming into the masjid and being in the company of ruhani people and performing salah with Jamaat. We've acquired a lot of ruhaniyah. Now that ruhaniyah that we have acquired, that is supposed to remain in our hearts. But instead what happens is, as soon as we leave from the doors of the masjid, we meet up with another musalli and then we start backbiting one of the other musallis. We start making ghibat of one of the musallis. Oh, that musallis are this, that musallis are that. So what is happening here? We've done the one good deed of performing our salah, but as soon as we've left that, we're now polluting our hearts again, we're making ghibat of that person. So we're slandering that person with our tongues, by which now we have polluted our hearts. And then what happens is, if we do not meet any musalli to talk with, we've gone out of the masjid. As soon as we've left the masjid and we go out in the streets, the same musalli who had just momentarily been standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who said Allahu Akbar, and who says I believe in La ilaha illallah, as soon as he goes out of the masjid, he finds that he's looking at this haram woman and that haram woman, and he's looking everywhere. So immediately, whatever nur he acquires through the ibadat of Allah, now he is destroying that nur of Allah, of the ibadat of Allah, by him not protecting his gazes. As soon as he goes out, he starts looking. He sits in his car, the moment he sits in his car, he puts the music on, now he's polluting himself. You go home, and as soon as we go home, the TV is on. And now this musalli, who is a 5 times musalli, he is punctual of his tahajjud salah as well. He's got a tasbih in this Allah, Allah, his the whole day as well. But he sat there in front of the TV and he sat there and he's looking at all those ghair mahram women there. And at the same time he's doing Allah, Allah as well. And this sahabi is a tahajjud guzar as well. And he is under the misconception that all these ibadahs of mine is going to make me a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He can dream on. He can't. Because he's doing good on one side and the other side he's polluting his heart and he's messing his heart up. He'll only acquire that when he protects himself from both avenues, both sides. That whatever he acquires through the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he maintains that and he secures that. Without him doing the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on top of it, this same musalli, if you say to him that is haram, what will he say? Well, I'm only watching the news channel. I'm only watching the news channel. And what he says, na liya na diya sif dekh liya. Na liya na diya sif dekh liya. I haven't given or taken anything, I've only looked. What's wrong in looking? I'm just looking at the news channel. Open up his heart and know what else he's looking at. Is he just concentrating on the news channel or is he concentrating on everything else that he's seeing in front? And if it was only news, then he can close his eyes and listen to the news as well. He need not to be looking at it. And nowadays we are such, our hearts have become so filthy that we're not satisfied with small screens. We want big huge cinemas in our houses. We want to see the picture even clearer. And then we keep on wondering, look, I am a tahajjud person who is punctual in tahajjud, in all my nawafil, and in my Ramadan, I'm punctual in so many ibadah. So, by now I should have become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But no ruhani improvement in our hearts. No ruhani improvement in our hearts. And why there isn't any ruhani improvement in our hearts? Because again, as I mentioned to you, we mix everything. The clean and the dirty, everything is mixed together. The ibadat of Allah is mixed with the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Until we keep the water clean, and it is just cleanness going in our hearts, then you will find that the heart will then become clean enough to acquire that nisbat and closeness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this keeping of the heart clean is the process of tazkiyah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all understanding. Inshallah we shall continue tomorrow. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت